1. You will hear a parent calling a language school to register their child for summer classes. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 4. Now listen and answer questions 1 to 4.
Good morning, Maple Language Academy. This is Peter speaking. How may I help you?
Hello, I'd like to register my daughter for one of your summer English courses.
Certainly. Could I take your daughter's full name first?
Yes, it's Emma Hastings. That's Hastings.
Thank you, Mrs. Hastings. And what's Emma's date of birth?
She was born on the 14th of May, 2010.
14th of May, 2010. That makes her 15, so she'll be placed in the teenage group. We have separate groups for younger children, so this is the right fit.
May I also have your home address?
Yes, it's 27 Willow Crescent. That's Willow Crescent. It's in the north of town, just behind the railway station.
I see. And is the postcode BT7 9QP?
No, that was our old postcode before we moved 2 years ago. The correct one is BT7 4DR.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 5 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 5 to 10.
Now, which course are you interested in for Emma? We currently offer general English, grammar-focused, and a speaking and listening course.
The speaking and listening course would be best. She struggles with confidence when speaking English, so practice would really help.
Excellent choice. That course is popular, especially with international students. It officially begins on July 3rd and runs for 4 weeks. Would that date work?
Actually, no. July 3rd is when we'll still be away on holiday. Could Emma start on the 10th of July instead?
Yes, that's possible. She can join from the second week, and we'll adjust the fee accordingly. May I take a contact number in case we need to confirm anything?
Certainly. The best number is 07845 239 610. That's my mobile.
And do you also have an email we can use?
Yes, please use mine. Hastings87@gmail.com. That's Hastings with 87 at the end.
Thank you. Does Emma have any medical conditions or special requirements?
No serious health issues, but she does have a nut allergy. So it's important she avoids certain foods at lunch.
Noted. We'll make sure her meals are safe.
Finally, how will you be paying? We accept card, cash, or bank transfer.
Bank transfer would be easiest for me.
Great. Once processed, you'll receive a confirmation email later today.
That's excellent. Thanks for your help.
My pleasure. We look forward to seeing Emma in July.
That is the end of part 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers to part 1. Part 2. You will hear a speaker explaining how Riverdale Community Radio works. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen and answer questions 11 to 15.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Riverdale Community Radio. We're really pleased to have so many new volunteers this season. Before you begin shadowing our staff, I'd like to give you a quick orientation. First, a bit of background. The station began in 1998, not as a full radio service, but as a small broadcasting club at the local youth center. At that time, members produced short programs which were played only within the center itself. It wasn't until 5 years later that we applied for a community license and began proper FM broadcasting across the town. Now, many of you have asked why we continue to operate as a not-for-profit organization. Well, the decision was partly financial, but more importantly, it was to guarantee independence. If we had commercial status, we'd rely heavily on advertising, which might pressure us to alter our content. Being community-run allows us to focus on local issues without that interference. Let me outline the range of shows we produce. Some are music-based, others cover news, but one area that's grown rapidly is our educational programming. For example, we run segments teaching English as a second language, which are very popular among international residents. We also have a Saturday slot dedicated to broadcasting school debates, which really engages parents and teachers. Of course, with growth comes challenges. One of the main difficulties is attracting enough skilled technical staff. We can easily find people willing to present, but fewer who are confident handling the sound desk or editing audio files. That's why part of your training will focus on these technical aspects, even if you're not aiming to be a technician. A quick word about our funding. It comes mainly from local council grants, occasional donations, and small-scale fundraising events. We don't accept large corporate sponsorships, as this would conflict with our independence policy. However, we have recently introduced a membership scheme where listeners contribute a modest annual fee, and this has been surprisingly successful.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
Now, moving to practical matters. The studio is open from 7 a.m. until 10 p.m., but volunteers are only expected to work a maximum of 6 hours per week. You'll be paired with a mentor during your first month. Remember, punctuality is crucial because broadcasting runs on strict schedules. We provide basic training in microphone use, sound levels, and interview techniques. This usually takes place on Wednesday evenings. If you can't attend on Wednesdays, let us know so we can arrange alternative sessions. As for what to bring, most people ask if they'll be checked for ID. We usually advise carrying one, though it isn't strictly required. What you really mustn't forget, however, is a pair of headphones. They aren't provided on site, so if you come without them, you may struggle to take part. When you're on air, there are some rules to follow. Avoid strong political opinions or offensive language. If you breach these, the program controller may suspend your slot.
Minor mistakes like pressing the wrong button aren't a disaster, but inappropriate content will be taken seriously. Finally, don't forget to sign the register at reception whenever you arrive. It's both a safety requirement and the way we track volunteer hours. That's everything for now. Welcome to Riverdale Community Radio. I hope you'll enjoy being part of our team.
That is the end of Part 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers to Part 2. Part 3. You will hear two students, Hannah and Victor, planning their presentation on the role of artificial intelligence in education. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen and answer questions 21 to 25.
So, Victor, I had a look at our draft outline again. I still think the opening needs improvement. Right now it just gives a history of computers in schools. That's fine, but it doesn't grab attention.
True. Remember what Dr. Morris said? Many students lose their audience because they start with too much context, when what people actually want is the central focus immediately.
Exactly. So maybe we should open with a question, like, will AI replace teachers? That sets the stage more effectively.
Good idea. But if we do that, we'll need to explain what we mean by AI in education. Otherwise, people will think only about robots, when in fact we're including adaptive software and automated marking systems.
Right. Definition is crucial. After that, do you think we should present the benefits or the drawbacks first?
Probably the drawbacks. If we talk about positives straight away, it might sound promotional. For instance, one criticism is that over-reliance on AI tools discourages critical thinking. Students might simply accept automated feedback without questioning it.
Although, isn't the bigger criticism about data privacy? Schools are collecting vast amounts of information on students.
That's true, but surveys show parents are actually more worried about reduced human interaction. So we could highlight that as our main point.
Okay, let's use that. We'll need evidence, though. I found an OECD report, but it's very technical.
Then maybe better to cite the European Teachers Association survey. It's simpler and directly about classroom experiences.
Makes sense. Then, after the drawbacks, we can balance it with benefits. One clear advantage is personalized learning. AI can adjust materials for different student levels.
Yes, but we shouldn't give a long list. Maybe just 2 or 3 examples, like adaptive language apps or automated grading.
Agreed.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
For balance, we could mention an initiative that failed, so it doesn't sound like we're claiming AI is perfect.
Like that chatbot experiment. The idea was for it to answer students' homework questions, but most responses were inaccurate.
Yes, that illustrates limitations well. Now, how should we split the speaking parts?
I'm happy to handle the problem section since I've read more about criticism. You could then cover the benefits.
Works for me, but what about the conclusion?
Maybe we should do it together. give a joint summary. And instead of just saying thank you, we could end by asking the audience, what role do you want AI to play in your future classrooms? That should spark discussion.
Perfect. Oh, and the slides, we need to decide, text-heavy or mostly images?
Visuals, for sure. If there's too much text, people will just read instead of listening.
Good point. Finally, the timing. We've got 20 minutes total.
Let's break it down. 5 minutes for introduction and drawbacks, 10 for benefits, and 5 for conclusion. That way we don't rush at the end.
That is the end of Part 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers to Part 3. Part 4. You will hear a lecture on the history of cartography. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today we'll be exploring the fascinating history of cartography, the making of maps, and how its development has influenced human progress. Although people often imagine maps as modern tools, their origins go back thousands of years. The earliest known examples were not on paper at all, but carved into stone or scratched onto clay tablets. These primitive representations were less about precise geography and more about marking sacred sites or trade routes. By the time of ancient Greece, mapmaking had become far more sophisticated. Philosophers such as Anaximander and Ptolemy attempted to depict the world systematically. Ptolemy's Geographia, for instance, used a grid system to plot locations. The accuracy was debatable, but the principle of using coordinates shaped all later mapping. In the Middle Ages, however, European cartography regressed. Maps often placed Jerusalem at the center, prioritizing theology over geography. While these so-called T-maps lacked navigational value, they reveal how worldview and faith shaped knowledge. At the same time, outside Europe, Islamic scholars were refining techniques, incorporating astronomical data and producing far more accurate charts. The real breakthrough came during the Age of Exploration. As sailors ventured across oceans, they required reliable charts. Portuguese and Spanish explorers commissioned portolan maps, which highlighted coastlines, harbors, and prevailing winds. These practical documents, though not perfect, enabled voyages that reshaped global trade and empire. Another milestone was the work of Gerardus Mercator in the 16th century. His projection allowed navigators to plot straight-line courses across the curved surface of the Earth. Although this distorts land sizes, Greenland, for example, appears enormous, the method revolutionized navigation. Moving into the 18th and 19th centuries, national governments began using maps as tools of administration. Land surveys helped collect taxes, settle borders, and even plan military campaigns. In short, mapping was no longer only about discovery, but also about power and control. And then the 20th century came aerial photography, allowing cartographers to capture landscapes from above. This brought an unprecedented level of precision, yet accuracy was still limited by human interpretation. Two different cartographers could look at the same photograph and produce slightly different maps. The digital revolution changed everything again. Satellite imagery and GPS now provide constantly updated maps accessible to anyone with a smartphone. cartography has shifted from being the preserve of specialists to something ordinary people use daily. Still, challenges remain. For instance, digital maps can reflect political biases. The depiction of disputed borders often depends on the user's location. In this way, cartography continues to mirror not just physical geography, but also cultural and political perspectives. And finally, looking ahead, we see the rise of interactive 3D mapping technologies. These don't merely show where places are, but simulate how environments might change under different conditions, such as climate shifts or urban expansion. Thus, the future of cartography is not static representation, but dynamic prediction.
That is the end of part 4.